I used to believe loyalty would always be enough. My name is Eric Walker. I'm 38, and I serve as a captain in the United States Army, specializing in systems engineering. I come from a family where the uniform wasn't just a job, it was tradition. My father was a tank commander, my mother ran logistics. Both believed in duty like it was part of their bloodstream, and I guess I inherited that too. I joined right after college, not because I was pressured to, but because I truly believed in something bigger than myself. Structure, service, discipline. I believed that if you did the right thing, the system would protect you. That belief shaped everything I did, every line of code I wrote, every late night staring at diagnostic readouts, every quiet victory fixing what others said was impossible. I wasn't just solving problems, I thought I was helping the mission. But lately, the lines have blurred. The things I trusted started to shift. And somewhere in that shift, I began to see that loyalty, when one-sided, can become a weapon. This isn't a story about betrayal in the usual sense. It's about what happens when the mission changes and no one tells you. It's about waking up one day and realizing that everything you built, everything you gave, could be turned against you. And what you do after that? Well, that's where this story begins. The framework started on a rainy Sunday in my garage. Not in a lab, not on a base-issued laptop. Just me, a used Lenovo, and a stubborn idea I couldn't let go. It wasn't part of any assignment. I hadn't even been briefed on the logistics upgrade project yet. What I had was time, curiosity, and a deep frustration with how outdated our current routing systems were. I wanted to see if I could build something smarter, something adaptive, an AI core that could reroute supplies mid-mission using real-time inputs like terrain changes, weather disruptions, and even troop fatigue data. So I started sketching models, feeding datasets through open-source simulators, and coding late into the night after the kids were asleep. Every line was written on my personal machine. I used private cloud storage, paid out of pocket, no access to government files, no proprietary datasets. Just public infrastructure data, synthetic test cases, and a prototype that began to take shape faster than I expected. The first version ran on a stripped-down Linux distro with my own security sandbox. I backed up every iteration, saved checksum logs, and timestamped changes across 3 separate nodes. I even kept a dev journal, noting which day each feature was added and where the original concepts came from. Weeks before I was ever looped into anything official, I had a functioning skeleton. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, built outside duty hours, off-grid, independent of any government directive. And when the official project finally came around, I kept my version separate. I never uploaded it to the internal repo, never tested it on their systems. I knew better. The military might own my rank, but they didn't own my weekends. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. General Marshall had that way of speaking low and slow, like gravity itself bent to his tone. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled just under his chin, and smiled like a man reviewing a contract he already knew you'd sign. His words came out smooth, almost friendly, as he asked me to brief him on the tool I'd been refining. I knew better. The second he said logistics and AI in the same sentence, I felt the walls closing in. I kept it vague, told him it was a private proof of concept. Off-duty, personal hardware, no relation to my current assignment. That's when the smile got thinner. He nodded like he understood. Then he pulled out a printed memo from his folder and placed it gently on the table. Duty to disclose. Bolded at the top, paragraphs of regulation beneath. His voice was soft, surgical. Any system, tool, or invention tangentially related to a soldier's mission, he said, must be reviewed by command. Whether developed on base or not, and if I wasn't comfortable with that, well, perhaps it was time to reconsider my future in uniform. He chuckled then, a dry, clipped sound, like we were sharing an inside joke. But I wasn't laughing. I saw it for what it was. A move to seize something I'd built alone. A tactic wrapped in policy, cloaked in hierarchy. He didn't demand the code. He just laid out the path where refusal meant insubordination, where silence looked like guilt, and compliance would bury my name beneath the next officer who filed the patent. That's when I knew. This wasn't a job disagreement. This was a power play, and Marshall wasn't just a superior anymore. He was the threat. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't pack in a fury. I moved like someone who had already made peace with what came next. The first thing I did was print my development logs, not summaries. Full logs, with every commit, every timestamp, each line marked and cross-referenced to backup folders I'd already triple-saved. Cloud, local, and offsite. Then came the notarization. I had a contact at the county office, an old friend from ROTC who owed me a favor, no questions asked. Just signatures, a government seal, and a neutral third-party record that what I built existed long before Marshall called it his. The next morning, I drafted the letter, addressed to the Department of Defense, IP compliance. It wasn't emotional. Just facts, evidence, and a legal claim to invention created independently, off-duty, without classified data or government support. I slid the envelope into the outbound tray at admin, logged the submission, and copied the confirmation number into 3 separate drives. Then I formatted the laptop I used for side projects, loaded it clean, and set the auto-forward to my private legal counsel in case anything triggered. I packed my desk in silence. Not a box. A slim backpack with the only things that mattered. USB with my full repo tree, the signed affidavit, and a hard copy of the original sketch drawn on the back of a training roster sheet. The one where the balancing logic first clicked. I left my badge on the desk. No fanfare, no goodbye email. Just a calm walk out of a world that had quietly shifted against me. Outside, the air felt different. Colder, maybe, or maybe just honest. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look back. I just got in the car, started the engine, and drove toward the only thing that still belonged to me. My work, my proof, my name. I never raised my voice. I never sent threats. I simply followed the plan I had drawn months earlier when I first sensed that Marshall might try to make a grab. The provisional patents were filed first, digital submission, time-stamped, encrypted. Each core module of the framework was detailed with line-by-line documentation, structured diagrams, and references to independent logs. The filings didn't just describe the system, they told its origin story. I kept the receipts, as they say, file hashes, backup chains, and an independent verification from my college friend Alan, now a data integrity officer for a research lab. He had reviewed my early builds 2 years ago. His signed statement came with a full test log. After the USPTO confirmation, I triggered the next layer. A formal letter sent to the DoD Office of Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer. It was calm, direct, and rooted in law. No accusations. Just a legal notice of claim. Then came the quiet move. An anonymous packet dropped through a secure federal channel. Sent to the Defense Technology Audit Office, complete with redacted documentation, version histories, and one statement of concern, not about theft, about misuse of process and risk to operational readiness. I routed the report through a burner network node. Then I shredded the access logs and wiped the sandboxed OS. I didn't want thanks. I wanted a paper trail that couldn't be buried. Every submission had a timestamp. Every document mirrored across 3 nodes in different states. Even the emails were routed through encrypted timestamp servers that didn't care who I was, only when I pressed send. I wasn't angry. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was just making sure they couldn't erase what I built. I knew how these systems worked. If I gave them noise, they'd fight back. But if I gave them proof, structured and quiet, the weight of law would do the rest. The real storm doesn't shout. It gathers in the silence. Then it hits all at once. The ballroom lights dimmed. A hush settled over the Defense Innovation Summit as the screens lit up in sleek blue and silver. General Marshall walked on stage like a man arriving to claim history. His voice was calm, his posture firm. He spoke about speed, about battlefield autonomy, about the future. Behind him, the demo system came online. Every number on screen flickered perfectly in sync. It looked like progress made manifest. But 3 minutes into the presentation, the air shifted. A side door opened without warning. A man in a dark uniform stepped onto the stage. Silver pin on his collar, DoD insignia on his chest. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even approach the mic. He stood behind Marshall, waited for him to finish a sentence, then spoke just loud enough to be heard. On behalf of the Department of Defense, testing and demonstration of this system is to be suspended immediately. The order is based on an active investigation into ownership and compliance concerns. A ripple moved through the room. Not gasps, just silence. The kind that spreads like cold water under the skin. Marshall froze. His hands still poised in that perfect open stance. His eyes darted once to the side screen, then to the officer. He tried to smile, to wave it off. But the screens behind him stuttered, then went black. One engineer behind the curtain whispered too loud. Another fumbled for a laptop. Someone from logistics started unplugging cables like it might help. In the crowd, phones came out. One reporter in the front row whispered to her assistant. 2 seats over, a defense contractor started typing midair on a tablet. Marshall turned slowly, face tight, lips pressed. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. No one said anything. No one clapped. There was no music, just the soft whine of cooling fans behind the stage. The moment stretched like a fault line. The officer stepped down. He didn't repeat himself. He didn't have to. The truth had entered the room, and it landed louder than any speech Marshall had planned. Backstage, someone cursed. A project manager knocked over a coffee. The lead systems engineer just sat down, head in hands. Outside, the sun kept shining like nothing had happened. But inside that room, the storm had already come and gone. The morning after the summit, my phone buzzed with more notifications than I'd seen in years. Headlines from defense blogs, AI newsletters, even a few mainstream outlets. They all said the same thing. DoD suspends next frame AI system after IP dispute. General Marshall under internal review. Project shelved indefinitely. I didn't post anything. No cryptic status, no victory quote. I went to the same coffee shop I always did, ordered a black drip, grabbed the chair by the window, and opened a book I'd read 3 times before. The sun came in soft and slanted across the pages. Outside, a city bus wheezed to a stop. I didn't look up. Marshall's name trended for a day. Then it faded. That's how these things usually go. Fast up, faster down. Somewhere in a secure building, the system was probably still plugged in, idle on a screen no one wanted to touch. I imagined the silence in that lab. The way engineers would walk slower now, say less, double-check their calendars before every meeting. But none of that mattered to me. I'd said what I needed to say without saying a word. The records were there. The patents were filed. The framework was safe. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't proud. Just certain. I finished my coffee, walked home without checking my inbox. Whatever messages were waiting could wait another hour, maybe 2. I'd already done the real work. The kind that doesn't need applause. Just proof. The door clicked shut behind me with a soft finality. In one hand, I held a paper cup of coffee still warm. In the other, a matte black USB drive no larger than a key, but heavier with everything it carried. The office wasn't flashy. Just clean walls, quiet lighting, a whiteboard waiting for ideas. It smelled like fresh paint and new furniture. Someone had written "Welcome, Eric" in blue marker. That was enough. The director greeted me with a nod and left me alone. No lectures. No rules taped to the desk. I sat, exhaled slowly, and pulled the laptop from my bag. The one I hadn't used since the last submission. It booted up without a sound. I slid the USB into the port and watched the framework load for the first time since everything ended. Not a demo, not a stolen pitch. Just the original, my logic, my code, untouched. This time, no one was watching over my shoulder. No chain of command, no veiled threats in the form of memos. I could think again, build again, And every feature from here on out would bear my name, not someone else's ambition. Weeks passed, then months. The project evolved, my team expanded. We didn't chase contracts, we solved problems. Quietly, effectively, the right way. I still walked to the same coffee shop, still ordered the same drink, but something in my posture had shifted. The weight was gone, replaced by something lighter, something earned. Looking back, I don't regret the storm. It showed me what I would protect and what I wouldn't surrender. That knowledge became my compass. You don't fight for ownership because you're greedy. You fight for it because your work deserves a name. Your name. Because in a world where power talks loud, sometimes proof just whispers back. And sometimes, that whisper is the only thing strong enough to be heard forever.